You know, sometimes it's fun when you get to play with other people's toys. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here on Hadama's account, actually. And I have just completed a takeover of Chimera for him. So as you can see, we have downed Chimera Nightmare here. He has done 126 million damage and 1.6 billion clash points with 8 trials completed here. And it was kind of fun enough. I wanted to kind of show you the team, some of my thoughts behind the champions we used for it, and some of the builds as well. Now, his account is fairly new, but he's a big spender. So the result is he's got a ton of champs, but his gear is still kind of catching up with where the champs are. And, you know, he knows this. He knows he's farming up a bunch of stuff. So this is not anything new to him. But with that said, he just got Klaazag and wanted to have me build him for a Chimera team, and Klaazag is an absolute beast. So he is the star of the show, but we're going to talk about the rest of these champions as well, why you may or may not want them, other opportunity champions to swap in here, and you know, obviously this is not going to be a very accessible team for a lot of you guys, but sometimes it's just kind of fun to see what other people are playing with in Raid. As you can see here, we've got Klaazag Key Hulk. He is kind of the key to all of this stuff because he does some really, really cool things here. So if we check him out here, and I'll move myself out of the way, he's got an A3 that gives you counterattack and unkillable and a taunt on himself. And if it's against a boss, they are protected buffs. So he does not need resistance, nor does anybody else on the team for these buffs, which is great, particularly because counterattack getting stolen is really bad against the Chimera, against the Viper head specifically here as well. He also has an A2, it's an AoE, and against bosses it is irresistible, but decrease defense and weaken on the first hit, decrease attack, or decrease accuracy I should say, and decrease resistance here as well. So these buffs will not be resistant, so they can't even be 3% resisted. So he gives you the decreased defense and the weaken and the decreased attack and the decreased resistance. This is going to make it harder for the boss to land debuffs on you, easier for your team to land debuffs against the boss, and it's fairly hard as well. This could be fun in Chimera as well, but this actually will get a couple of quests done as well, because decreased resistance is one of the things you do need to load up on the boss. So is decreased accuracy, and honestly decreased defense and weaken you should be going for anyway, so that makes some sense. And finally, he's got an A1 True Fear, which cannot be resisted by bosses either. So that True Fear is going to help against the ram form. So for the most part, we can actually ignore the ram form and just make sure that he is hitting with that True Fear. And because he counterattacks with his AoE counterattack, which is amazing, well, if he doesn't get the True Fear out the first turn, he should get it out after the first turn, because after the first turn, he'll get, he should be AoE attacking everybody, and he'll just do it on his A1 if the ram has killed somebody else and starts doing some of the ram's AoE attacks. And if the ram doesn't start doing some of those AoE attacks, well, then he just needs to hit it with an A1, and then you don't have to worry about it too much anymore. But the Unkillable will stop you from actually dying against the ram form as well. Unkillable also does trials against the lion to help tank some damage as well. Counterattack is one of the ways you can do one of the trials. This guy is a trial machine. With other champions, I think he can access somewhere between 17 to 19 trials himself, but he needs other champions to help him either get to the trials he can access or to help take advantage of some of the stuff like the extra damage for counterattack, for example. And then finally, whenever this champion places a debuff on an enemy, deals damage equal to 1% of their max HP for each debuff they are currently under, stacks up to 10%. Occurs once per skill and once per target. So he is doing passive additional damage whenever he is doing that A2, and sometimes with the A1 he's doing a ton of extra damage with this passive as well. That is huge. Finally, he's got a defense in all battles aura, and he's a defense based champion, and we've built him in Savage and other gear mostly to get him fairly quick. 238 speed is good but not great. The crit damage of 270 is again good but not great. The defense I certainly would like a little bit better. Some of this is I need to get, we need to get this to defense percent instead of defense, but it looked okay enough, and I didn't want to run out of every resource here. Again, you can get another 80 defense up here on all three of these things as well. We've got the crit damage ascension here. We've got crit damage gloves as well, and a defense banner here and a defense banner here with speed. Honestly, I think I would have preferred another banner that had some defense percent here as well. But again, we don't have all the gear yet on this account, so we're doing the best we can. And finally, we went with a Malefic Talon relic here as well, and that gives us a bunch of extra crit damage. You could certainly go with the crown instead, or the coronet, I should say. The coronet would be very good on him as well, because that should max out fairly quickly because he's landing so many debuffs. As far as the blessings are concerned, Nature's Wrath will give you a bunch of extra damage pretty quickly, so that seems like a good way to go. In fact, that's probably the way I would go with him. 2% extra damage per debuff you place, and that's going to apply to everything he does. That is a ton of extra damage. And that's going to help you do damage with this dude overall. Now, he was not the damage superstar, but again, we could make him better. More defense will make him better. More crit damage will make him better. Honestly, a 3-star blessing is probably the biggest thing he needs to really get ticking. And a 4-star blessing would be absolutely amazing on him, because that's another 30 some odd crit damage. That is going to get him to over 300 crit damage. It's going to give another 80 or 800 defense and some other stats as well. And that's going to help overall with him just doing a ton of damage. So he is a beast, but we have surrounded him with a good team that will help support him and do everything that he does. So one of the highlights, I was looking for a champion that did a couple of things, and Dune Herald came to the search, and he is actually a pretty cool champion for this particular team, so I'm excited to be using him. I haven't had a chance to play with one of these guys either. So he is in 9-piece protection, because he is giving us the block debuffs and the increased speed, as well as an intercept stack on a 3-turn cooldown. The intercept stack's only on one ally, but he is here for the block debuffs, which can help with a couple of trials, as well as generally keep things like poisons from killing your team and keep you from being controlled by some of the CCs that the boss gets on you. And the increased speed, nice to have. He's not the only one doing increased speed, but it never hurts to keep your champions moving quickly, so that is great as well. He's got the passive here where he puts increased accuracy on everybody for 3 turns. Whenever a debuff an enemy is removed, expires, or has duration decrease, fills his turn meter by 5%. So he is constantly getting additional turn meter as well to do some cool stuff. Finally, he has a chance to steal buffs and applies buff spread, which is not going to help against Chimera, but he puts block buffs and block active skills up on the turn. Now, it's kind of weird that these happen before or after the buff spread, I should say, but you know, I guess you're not going to spread that one around, so that's fine, I guess. But this is very useful for the Viper form, so as long as you make sure that's prioritized for the Viper form, that's great. That also, because he's stealing the buffs, means that he actually is very full auto friendly, because he can actually steal if anyone gets this block debuff stolen. But that's again why we have him in 9-piece protection, so he's not getting them stolen, hopefully. And then finally, it's got an A1 chance of stealing turn meter, not going to apply. The debuff spread, again, not going to apply too much, but we are here for this block buffs, very useful against the Chimera. Block active skills, very useful against the Chimera, and block debuffs, very useful against the Chimera. We've gone with Senna here. Senna is absolutely amazing. You get a speed aura in all battles, which is definitely helpful. And then, of course, we get all these continuous heals and increased speed, fills the turn meter of everybody as well. So you get a ton of healing from those continuous heals, but her passive is when any continuous heal activates on anybody, fills the turn meter of all allies by 5%. So, and then at the end of her turn, increases the duration of continuous heal buffs by a random ally except this champion for 1 turn. So they keep going and going and going. And basically, once she gets these continuous heals and they start popping off, everyone gets at least 1 turn, if not 2, before the boss goes again. It's really kind of nuts. So she gets everybody going constantly, gets all the skills effectively reset by taking extra turns, lets you get in some extra damage. She got an A1 that instantly activates a continuous heal, which again gives you all these extra buffs. Intimidating Presence is a decent blessing for her. I would honestly also think about possibly doing something like a Nourish push for her, because that will give you a ton of extra healing and some max HP restoration, which could be very helpful for Hydra as well. So that is another option for you. But if you don't have intimidating presence on somebody, she's as good a person as any to put on for the intimidating presence. With the Dune Herald, honestly, maybe I should have him in the lead because he's got a slightly better speed aura, so that 20% instead of 19% would be good. It is nice to have somebody with Brimstone and Chimera as well, so he makes sense to have Brimstone on there because he's constantly landing debuffs and attacking. So that's going to be very helpful. And of course, then we've got Lady Mikage. Most of you guys know what she does. We're only using Form 1, where we do the buff and debuff extension, and then we have the ally attack as well as the additional ally attack here as well. And she is going to enable Toshiro, who is going to give us the leech and the decreased defense, as well as his constantly ramping up of a bunch of HP and attack until he gets to an extra 100% attack and 100% HP. And that is going to basically double his damage, which is good. I mean, I like doubling damage on my damage dealer. Now, we've got him in Savage and a mishmash of other gear. His build is not great because, again, we're struggling with gear. And to be fair, I think this build was built probably when I did the first takeover for him about a month ago. So probably we might be able to replace some of this gear and get him a little bit better. Again, getting a blessing would certainly be helpful for him as well. But we are getting a lot of work done here, getting the extra crit damage here as well. In fact, we will ascend this fully to make sure we get all of that extra crit damage. That's going to help. The extra accuracy is helpful as well. It would be nice to have something that's a slightly better piece of gear here as far as the set's concerned, but that is a lot of crit rate that's kind of hard to ignore. And we don't have speed on every one of these pieces as well. So he's a little slower than I might like. He certainly could be a lot more attack oriented, give you more attack and more HP. But overall, Toshiro just does a ton of damage. The leech is going to help you with a trial. The extra decreased defense is going to help you. And again, we've got a talent on him, certainly very good. You could certainly bring him in with, say, a Cat's Gaze would be amazing for him. You could certainly put him in Merciless gear, would actually be really good for a Toshiro. And finally, Nature's Wrath is going to be the blessing you're looking for until you get him to a 6-star blessing, at which point in time you are going to be wanting Crushing Rend because you're just going to ignore a ton of extra defense there as well. So that is the team build for all this stuff. Now, how would I improve this team? Well, there's a couple of trials that I certainly struggled with that I was trying to figure out how to deal with. We did not have decreased speed on the boss at all. So having champions that would put decreased speed out there as well certainly could have been interesting. And that's where, like, for example, we had a Fighty on the account here. He could have been an interesting option as well. There are plenty of ways to get decreased speed. The problem was if I wanted Mikage and I wanted Toshiro, well, that ate up 2 slots. And then Senna eats up a 3rd slot. And of course, you need a reviver anyway, so Senna's a good reviver from that perspective as well. And on this team, as far as tanking the initial ram form, that is Mikage's job because she has the least amount of crit damage. Otherwise, Senna was next up in line, which is certainly dangerous because if Senna dies, well, you lose your reviver and that's going to bork the run. So that's a bit of a problem. Other things we certainly looked at, getting 10 debuffs would have been a good way to deal with it. We needed to get some poisons and have some burns. That would have been nice. So maybe even one of these champions eventually in a toxic set might have been a certainly interesting option. The problem is that you're oftentimes building 4-piece sets on your damage dealers that are going to be good. So that would mean you'd want a toxic Mikage or a toxic Senna, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, plenty of interesting champions here. And, this is kind of a quick video, but I figured I would show you guys some of the cool stuff I was doing in Chimera because honestly, I found it kind of fun. Klaazag is a beast of a champion. So if you have a chance to get a Klaazag, I would highly recommend it. Obviously, if you're not spending, don't spend for him. I talked with Hadama. He almost didn't get Klaazag and pulled a ton of voids and was actually very disappointed at the fact that he got multiple legendaries. I think he got like 5 or 6 legendaries pulling for him. I don't remember exactly how many. And he couldn't get the champion he wanted to on the rate up. Now he finally did. So he got the Klaazag eventually. As you can see, the rate up was there and he was getting a 25 times chance for Klaazag in voids, and it still was difficult to get him. So these progressive events are better than nothing when you're targeting specific champions. But keep in mind, even for void champions, they struggle to be a guarantee for a champion you might want. Now, Plarium might actually be increasing the rate for that sometime soon, so that would be amazing. But until then, don't throw a ton of money after a champion that happens to be on rate up unless you're okay with not getting that champion. So just a word of warning to you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Hopefully you had some fun kind of looking at what, a spender has to deal with a new account. Hadama's been doing a great job, and I've been enjoying giving him some assistance here, doing some takeovers for him, and it's nice that he lets me use his account to do occasionally a video like this, because I figured you guys would be interested in seeing how good Klaazag is. And again, with better gear, with faster champions, increasing things, the Great Hall will certainly help as well. More damage is going to come on this account. So you guys have a wonderful day, and until the next video, I am Bront, CatHerder.